Welcome to City Council meeting this evening. Appreciate you joining us and our special guests from the Cherry Days Committee. Appreciate you being with us this evening. We'll begin our City Council meeting of September 10th, 2024 by having Councilmember Pulver give us an invocation or a thought at his option, and then leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to do a short invocation. Dear Heavenly Father, we appreciate Thee, and as we go about our meeting today, that we can keep the citizens in mind and make the right decisions. And Lord, as we live in this awesome city, that we can maintain it and do so at a minimal cost. And I say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilmember Pulver. Appreciate that. We'll start our meeting tonight by hearing from our Cherry Days Committee. Megan Stevens, I understand, is going to be making the presentation this evening, giving us an update on how things went and a little financial report. After which we have some small gifts here that we'll present. So Megan, do you want to come up and give us the presentation? You can go ahead and say what happened. You weren't really scheduled to do this until a half hour ago, if you'd like.
My husband was supposed to be here, but he's dealing with a fire at work, so you guys get me. Megan Stevens, yep.
Does he need help with the fire?
I know, it's actually with the fire marshal that he's having
All
issues
right,
with.
Megan, go ahead.
Not me. not
In
this
North
one.
Salt Lake. All right, so let's see if I can read from this far. I had LASIK, but it's starting to go bad
You
on me.
could
sit
sit.
down if you want, if it helps. Is it on those screens?
Just, yeah. turn it on.
Yeah.
Okay, so I thought I would start with the changes that we made this year. So huge change, we moved the parade to Washington Boulevard, and we also pushed it to the 4th of July. It seemed like everybody really liked that. The only bad part about that was our Saturday event, we definitely had a lot less participants. We also changed a lot of the events to later in the day, but that didn't really seem to affect participation that much. We did our pickleball tournament at North Ogden this year, and that decreased our cost. We were more selective with the marketplace vendors. Kim had a lot to do with that. So we had less vendors overall, but we had less overlap, so that was good. We changed the luau catering service, which was much more successful this year. We brought back the medallion hunt, thanks to Emily Call, and we had great participation, even though it lasted one day. People in North Ogden are really good at finding medallions. We brought in a foam company to do their foam party. The foam was really successful this year, but the cost was definitely significant. We added a teen dance party. The turnout was low and the cost on that one was significant. And then we also tried doing Cherry Days swag this year. And we guessed on sizes. Of course, the extra larges went out really fast and we got left with a lot of smaller sizes. All right, so then I added pictures of all the events to just kind of show what kind of gatherings we brought. So this is the ping pong ball drop. We had about 1,000 kids participate. The luau, we had about the same participation again this year. We want to say like 3,000. The amphitheater looked awesome. We brought in a kids marketplace this year to go along with our car show, which was super successful. We did movie in the park at the amphitheater this year. We had similar turnout to what I think we did last year, but the screen was really awesome and I think that'll continue to grow. This was our carnival. had great participation. Marketplace, we had about 100 vendors again this year. We had some good participation there. Foam party, the foam, you could see was a lot better this year. And then, of course, the slides, people love the slides. Those were some pretty dang good lines. And then the parade on Washington, which was awesome. Okay, so jumping into numbers, I did a revenue comparison between 2024 and 2023. We had decreased sales and we also had decreased sponsorship this year. Not for lack of trying. Cost comparison, we tried a few new things out this year, so we ended up spending more money. We tried the swag. We spent money on marketing, trying to get more people to attend. We also spent more money on the stage and artists for the concert to try to make that bigger and better. Also on the fireworks and the luau. So it was interesting looking at the ticket sales comparison. It shows that we had decreased participation in everything but the luau, but I was also unable to include Venmo and cash transactions. So I would guess that they were about the same both years, except for pickleball. That one definitely had less participants this year. And then this is a nice little sheet that shows cost and revenue based on the event. So of course the carnival was definitely the most expensive event, followed by the concert, fireworks, and then it kind of decreases from there. And then into our events that actually made money. So we just have the ping pong ball, the pickleball, and then the marketplace. That was just with the vendors because the vendors paid us to come. Made some good money there. And that's it. Thanks, Brad.
So Megan, I don't want to put you on the spot, but overall, with the profit from the three things you identified,
Mhm.
plus the contributions from that were raised by the committee, plus the money the city gave you versus the cost, where did we end up?
We ended up about even for the 2 years. We about broke even.
Is that using the money from last year that was left over? So we could be a little short. John, I think you indicated there's an amount that we may be short based upon your analysis.
It was we're finding that donation that never hit the books. And then it would be maybe $1,000 is about the area of short, about from what me and Megan have talked about.
Yeah. So that was with city contribution and using the 19,000 from last year. So, okay. Council, do you have any questions for Megan or Kim? Councilmember Watson.
Can we get a copy of this slideshow? I think it's really great. Okay, thanks.
You can see, I think councils, and I'd appreciate some feedback. Megan, I know you're not going to be involved next year, rightfully so, I understand. If you went back, John, a couple slides on the cost of the events versus the revenue. Megan, what I'm going to say is if you were to do this again, what would you probably not do?
Oh, that's-
Knowing that, you know,
question was going to come. So, I mean, it's hard. The carnival definitely is very expensive. The kids have fun, but is it worth it? I'm not sure. Like, it is very cool. It is very big and grandiose. That one's a hard one. I don't know if you would just maybe do less and not, I think we spent $40,000 on the inflatables and the whole carnival. I guess it's saying 49. I can't remember what else that includes the petting zoo and a couple of other things. And then the concert, that one's really hard too. I know Jake is very passionate about it, but we really don't get that great of attendance. And I don't know if it just slowly continues to grow, but that one wasn't huge either year. And a huge part of that expense, like half of it is for that stage. So if we could somehow have the concert at the amphitheater, you cut that in half, and then you could still bring in good artists. The problem with that is then the carnival doesn't fit at the amphitheater park, so then either or, which is why we did it at North Ogden Park both years. And the fireworks would be really cool at Barker Park too. You do bigger, better, but again, the carnival wouldn't be able to coincide with the same place, so you just kind of have to decide what to nix. I think the luau is great. I think you could also charge people to come watch, even if it's $5. I think that then becomes a zero or a profit number. It's just hard because we haven't the last 2 years. We haven't charged people to watch the show. But would you say the participation was like triple? So we've got like 1,000 people that will eat, and then we've got another 2,000 people that just come for the free show. But the show is expensive. So what would you nix, Mel?
What would I take out?
Yeah, looking at these numbers.
Well, I have a philanthropic mindset around what is Cherry Days about. It's about bringing a community together. It's not about making money. It's not about, how do you do that? How do you bring it together? And my experience the last couple of years is it's been so divisive, and with the Facebook and all the things, it's been tricky to even feel that, coming together feeling. But ultimately, that's what I would want. And I would want there to be, I would hate to see anything go away, because that feels like, like we're giving up. Because I feel like there's a lot of hope around bringing the community together. But as far as the losers, as far as money goes, I mean, I wouldn't charge for the luau because, and sorry, I wouldn't charge. You've got to have those kinds of things like the fireworks, you have the things that do cost you money. And there are so many ways you could add revenue. It just takes creative thinking. So for instance, and you might have already, sorry, I'm late. Sorry, I was late, but like for instance, moving the parade did impact the flow into the park. But the carnival, we could charge more. It's so cheap for what we're giving them, that there are other ways that you can create. I think the biggest loss was the concert and the stage. And so I think that's probably, and although I do feel like that stage in the park is important because it creates a venue type of feeling, but that was just too expensive. And so there are definitely ways to get the cost down on that. But it's really hard. You're talking about volunteers that are donating all their time and resources. And so, I'm not saying, oh, we should do the concert different, because Jacob's amazing. And the fact that he pulled it off and he's donating all his time, how can you ask people to use all their good favors to get you something for free? I've done that for too many years. And but the concert's one. I know people would like to see things at the amphitheater, as would I. Then you have to be open to how do you change that venue so that, not change the venue, but how do you do a concert there and bring in other things that pull the people in? You're spinning lots of plates. And quite honestly, I don't know how and who you would get to do it all in the future to make it all work for any less money than we're already spending. I don't know what the answer is, because, but the concert I would take out. Oh, we paid a little bit more than for the foam party. We could do that cheaper. The dance party was a bust. And that was you know, yeah.
And then the stage, if you were to keep it, Jake said
We paid in advance.
if you paid in advance this year, you can get it for, was it $5,000 cheaper?
Yeah.
So that's a big savings, but you'd have to put it in this year's budget.
Is this saying we lost $2,000 on the shirts?
Mhm.
That's interesting. But that was one of the ones I told
Yeah.
them, I'm like, look, you do swag, you lose money. That's just how it works. But those shirts can be sold next year. There's still some left. But that's one of those things that is worth doing because you see people wearing those shirts from here for the next 10 years, like, because people.
And they were
buy 'em.
awesome shirts, by the
Yeah,
way.
they
They were
were
really
awesome.
nice.
I was very
Well
proud.
designed.
I mean, we should be proud because it is hard to do a shirt right. So,
All right, well, that gives us a little feedback. I think the other thing we need to consider is you guys were pretty good at raising money in the community. And we're losing a lot of those contacts where we'd be starting somewhat at a disadvantage.
why do you feel you're losing them?
Well, Bexels are going, and I think they were involved quite a bit in raising money.
We have the contacts. It doesn't,
Yeah. Who has the contacts?
yeah, here's the reality. There are some people that are gonna wanna give again because they saw that they got something from it. And there are some that won't. But that is just, nurturing authentic relationships. People are gonna wanna jump in. Then you'll have a whole new crop of people that are gonna saw what happened and would want to jump in. So I feel like you can do it. I mean, you got Ryan on your
Oh.
team here. I mean, Ryan was the biggest.
Yeah.
He pulled more clout than, he pulled in more
Yeah.
money than anybody.
I don't think he's really excited to do it again in my
I
conversations
don't
with him.
blame him.
So,
It's hard
all
to-
right,
Mayor, can I ask another question?
sure.
So money aside, is there anything that you would recommend not doing or staying? Besides looking at it financially, maybe looking at it from a volunteer standpoint, or that there won't be a professional party planner doing it. Is there any other recommendations that you have?
Well, you have 3 years now where it makes sense. You got Friday, Saturday, then Saturday again, right? That you get to celebrate the big day on. You have that in your favor. Don't screw it up. Take advantage of that because what we did was the hardest thing anyone could have done and it still was a huge success. Your next 3 years will all be wins because of the day it falls on.
Because of the fourth.
The fourth. I mean,
Okay,
that's
great.
like, it's a no-brainer. If you just, I don't know what your plan is, but you've got that on your side. So, and I know there's a lot of people, and we have set the foundation to where there is no reason why you can't continue this tradition.
So you have all your notes and everything that you'll pass on, contacts
Yeah,
and
I mean,
everything.
it's mostly the volunteers that have done it for the last 2 years that most
Mhm.
likely they'll be willing to step up. And the hardest events, like the parade and the boutique is probably, my guess is those people will still step up and want, I mean, so, and of course, there's always, I'm not gonna not answer my phone. I'm super happy to see the tradition, continue on.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
And all the chairs are willing and able to continue. And they were the heavy lift on each event.
yeah.
There's a couple of the events, like the carnival, that was a Mel. Luau was a Mel. Fireworks were a Mel, but there's a couple that
Yeah, but
you'd reach out to her, but the other ones.
We got somebody to handle those fireworks already.
Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember Seven.
So I'm kind of curious, and by the way, thank you so much for all you do. So let me begin that with a compliment. But I just have, you, Melanie, you said something that I thought was really, really important. and I had not really thought much about this before because we're always, as a city council, we're always so focused on thinking about, okay, are we going to be making money on this? Are we going to have a positive revenue? Right? And I've thought this before, but the way you said it just was important to me. But are we bringing people together or are we trying to make money? And I think having grown up in North Ogden, I look forward to Cherry Days every year to kind of gather as a community. So maybe our approach is a little bit more community driven than just, did we make a profit on everything?
It's crazy. I don't know one other city who has these numbers that we have. How much did we spend out of their pocket?
This year,
Uh-huh,
well, so we had the 31 contribution
right.
and
But,
then it about evened out.
but that is nothing is it 22,000 residents? What is it?
Yeah, about 22.
Alpine is 11,000 residents and they spend $50,000. And I did it the same, like scrappy. I mean, that's just what a city decides their community is worth. They're worth that much. You're talking about, there's people that will run into each other in the park that won't see each other all year. Like it brings that feeling. But if you're gonna go at it in the way like we have to make money, it just takes all the fun out of it, for sure.
Yeah, well, I don't think we've had a make money attitude until the last 2 years. I mean, it's been a community event. It was 2 days that brought people together. And I agree, though, the purpose of it is to bring people together. My concern is how divisive it's become. That is my concern. That's the very reason the volunteers who have participated, most of them are stepping back, is because it's become so divisive. So I agree with you, Councilmember Severing. That's the first thing we need to work on, is the people that are being so divisive, who are prominent citizens, in many cases. We need to resolve that situation, because it's not necessarily the money. We've done it for years, 50 years, 2 days with the city putting in $25,000. And it was less divisive than spending $140,000 and doing all these events. So the first thing I would encourage the council to do is think about how this can become a community gathering event and what we need to push along in that success.
And I'm not trying to oppose your thoughts there, but yet on the flip side, it seems to me that there's just, it didn't take me long being on the city council to learn really quickly, there's going to be a segment of the population that we're just not going to please. And probably 95% of the people with their kids just thoroughly enjoyed Cherry Days. So I hate to let the 95% be undermined because of some very vocal individuals. So that's
Well,
just
the reason
my
we have no
thought.
volunteers,
What's that?
because they were personally attacked.
I've been personally attacked since I've been on the city council, but I
You're getting
stayed.
paid to be attacked.
What's that?
You're getting paid to be attacked.
And I did not know I was going to get paid on this position either. But when I'm openly abused at a truth and taxation meeting by somebody who continually stands
Yeah.
before me and calls me in front of everybody a liar again
All for
and again and again.
$500.
But my point just simply is, maybe our mind shift needs to be, forget the naysayers, forget that we're maybe making a big profit, because this is, and who knows what the future is going to be with like our forthcoming elections. Our country is so divided. This would just be one more bad decision if we're going to let it disappear because of some divisiveness in the city. But
Well, Blake, let
Just
me
me.
just point out something here. We gave the committee assignment, and the council was on their case because the parade wasn't on the 4th. I mean, we did not support them ourselves because we pushed them to move that. You can see that they're shaking their head.
I'm sorry.
They felt unsupported because the council told them that they were basically almost unpatriotic because the parade wasn't on the 4th, because the vocal citizens wanted it on the 4th.
Mayor, I'm
So-
happy to say it wasn't me who had that kind of a attitude toward that.
So there were numerous. Councilmember Pulver.
I just wanted to say that I've seen you guys work your guts out, and I just want to, appreciate that and just say that publicly. By the last day, I don't know what you were, what you were drinking, whatever, to keep up with things, but you could definitely see that you were gassed. And I was amazed at all the stuff that you guys did. Anyway, so, but I guess what I'm thinking, and I'll be out loud right now, is that simplify. I know there's a whole bunch of stuff that you guys have done to make it a full week and a whole bunch of things that, but at this point, I don't know if we need to step back and simplify a little bit before we go back to going full bore again, because the whole reason for having Cherry Days, like you said, is community, getting people together, tradition, things like that. And I know having that is important. Just getting my ear chewed off by people that like Mr. Severing was talking about, just blows your mind, and about silly things, trivial. Well, I think trivial, but citizens are very, I don't even know what you want to call it. Anyway, stuck in their ways, and that's fine. But at the same time, you have to think about the 22,000, not just the 45 or whatever that are yelling, screaming. So anyways, I think that's something that we need to work on. And that's why we're kind of pulling to see, what do we really want? What do we really need? And then racking and stacking, and then going from there. So.
What does simplifying give you? Like, what does that accomplish?
Less timeline. I know that that's something that you guys have worked a lot on, but when it comes right down to it, I don't know who's going to be. It might be the people sitting here that are going to be in charge of it. And I think I'm no party planner. So, but anyway.
Yeah, I think this is good feedback. And you've heard it from several, and I know the whole council feels this way. You guys did awesome. And we're indebted for the passion you have. You've seen some of my articles, and I classify patriotism as those who are willing to step in and help their community to come together. And you guys did that. And so, we have some small gifts here that I want to present to you. It's, as I said in the article in the Connection magazine, it's not that we didn't pay you guys because you're worthless. We didn't pay you because you're priceless. And we could not have paid enough to have this taken place. And so I hope you know from the bottom of our hearts how grateful we are. And we know it wasn't easy. It was very difficult, not the work, but the emotional part of it. And so thank you so much for getting us a good base to move forward with. We really appreciate it. So with that, we've got some gifts here I'd like to present to you, if that's okay. All right. Go make sure your husband's not getting burned in a fire. Thank you so much. I'm supposed to speak into the microphone. But I'll speak loudly. Thanks so much. You're welcome for all you. Not Spencer eating that. Okay. Kim, I'm supposed to speak into the microphone here. Well, I think the marketplace was pretty successful too.
Yeah, I guess.
And we know Ryan helped too.
Sure.
So share this
He
with
was
you.
there.
And thank you so much. You guys are awesome.
Thank you.
And Miss Melanie, kind of the one that, the brainchild of getting this thing going.
Oh,
You're
fun.
awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
yeah, thank you.
Yep.
And thank you guys for showing up. And hopefully, because
Well, we did very little compared to you guys, so thank you so much. All right, we'll move on with our agenda, with the consent agenda. Looking at the agenda this evening, council, are there any of you who would like to discuss any potential conflicts you feel you may have? Okay, tonight, any items that we'll be voting on, we'll start down with Council Member Dalpaz and just move this way this evening. So we do have a couple, I think, items to vote on. Item number 3, I'd be looking for a motion to approve the August 13th, 2024 City Council meeting minutes, which I believe have been sent to you in advance and you've had a chance to review and make comments to Ryan. Are there any further corrections or comments you'd like to make before I seek a motion? Seeing none, can I get a motion then to approve the council meeting minutes of the August 13th, 2024 meeting?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Councilmember Barker.
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Severing. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion passes unanimously. We're now going to hear from our city manager and attorney, John Call. And he's going to talk about the disbandment of the Barker Park Committee. John?
So council, we're losing a few members and have just struggled with that committee to meet the goals. And so JD and the mayor thought it'd be a good idea to just do some small group presentations and not presentations, but some meetings and bring back the plan to the council here in the next couple of weeks. Well, before end of October. Eric's drawing us up a plan to show. We've been taking the input from the Build Barker Park Committee, from the Grassley plan, from the 2017 plan, 16 plan, and just bringing back something for the council to approve so we can get that moving. So that's the recommendation. And because of that, we won't need the committee to function anymore. So.
Okay. And John, let me just say thanks to Councilmember Dalpaz. As we sat down last week, he was able to express a lot of feedback from the committee as we looked at the plan to try to put it together. And thanks to those who have served on the committee to give us the ideas. Many of the things were adopted in the preliminary plan we've asked Eric to draw up. There were some changes, some relocations and a few things. Citizens will have a chance again to give final input as the plan is brought back to the council. The key we wanted is Eric to get the infrastructure items kind of put together so we didn't end up duplicating things with stormwater, electricity, sewer, et cetera. So we're looking forward to moving with that. Okay. Anything else, John?
Nope.
So I'd look for a motion then to approve the disbandment of the Barker Park Committee. Do we have such a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Councilmember Dalpaz.
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Pulver. Is any further discussion? All in favor of the motion to disband the Barker Park Committee, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we'll now move into our active agenda. We'll seek public comments at this point in time for those who would like to comment. I don't know if we have anyone online tonight, John, but if you would watch that, if you would like to comment, I would invite you to come up to the podium here, state your name, if you're a resident of North Ogden, and please limit your comments to no longer than 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor. Kevin Burns, I live in North Ogden. I'd first like to say thank you. The committee's gone, but appreciate the efforts that they put into Cherry Days. A lot of work. I've having worked on a few events myself. Probably most notable would be the Ogden Marathon. Done a lot of work there, and it's tough. It's hard to be a volunteer. So 15 years I volunteered there. It's really sad that they kind of went out the way they went out because they have a really bad taste in their mouth. But I would like you to notice that we spent 2 weeks now talking about Cherry Days and how we're going to manage Cherry Days and what we're going to do forward. And I meant last week to give kudos to Councilmember Pulver for saying, hey, I don't want to do it. That's not what I want to do. And we just lost a committee that had a lot of passion for this project, and they're pretty roughed up. And so if they actually have passion, if you all don't have the passion for that project, don't take it on, because you're going to be miserable, and we need you to do other more important things. So just my 2 cents on that. That's a tough gig. And if you don't want to do it, don't do it. Because you think you get beat up now. Good luck. So now what I really want to step up for, I want to thank Dave for the road in my neighborhood. I love the road in my neighborhood. I love having a new road. However, phase 3 last week, which was the ceiling portion of it, the company, I believe, was Anderson Asphalt. Does that sound familiar? Yes. They should never be allowed to do work in our city. They are just an utter failure that they pulled off. Now, I found this notice at my house notifying me 2 days before they were going to shut the road down. And there's no markings on this letter as to who it's from. I didn't even know if it was legitimate. I called the city. Hey, is this legit? I was told, yeah, it's legit. So there's no names, no markings as to who it belongs to, who's shutting me out of my neighborhood. And so I was a little annoyed by that. So third phase of this project is the second time they've messed with my garbage day. Now, I planned my garbage day because as you've heard me say before, I need the green waste. So I mow my lawn according to my garbage day, and they messed it up again. So there's Councilman Pulver's heard me complain about the green waste a couple of times. I don't like leaving the grass in my garbage, but that's what I'm forced to do. So that's the second time they've messed with it. So when I called and talked to, I don't remember if I talked to the city, I really understand the name. It was one of the road supervisors of some kind. I'm not exactly sure which one it was. I was told that that company was responsible to contact the garbage company and get the garbage picked up early, which they failed to do, because the man from the company, the road company, came to me the next morning and said, well, is today garbage day? Yes. Is it normally Thursday? Yes. Did they change it because of Memorial Day or Labor Day? Yes. But I was told you were going to call them and make an arrangement, and they didn't. So they end up having to drag the project out. And so I was a little annoyed by that. Now, twice in their letter, they mentioned that they're going to tow our cars away if we're on the street after 7 a.m. I am unaware of an ordinance that provides them the ability to do that. I don't know of a state ordinance. I don't know of a city ordinance. I know we have something for snow plows, but we don't even tow for snow plows. So it's just a real threatening tone to their letter. That was annoying. And it finishes with, your cooperation will help complete the project quickly with minimal inconvenience. Not true. It was a huge inconvenience. So a little better communication. And it's something we've talked about with the city in the past. Our communication seems to lack. So that's my thought on Anderson Asphalt should never be permitted to conduct any business in North Ogden. As a taxpayer responsible for helping to pay them, I'd be happy if I never saw another Anderson Asphalt truck again. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else like to comment this evening? Anyone online, John, have their hand raised?
Nope.
All right, we will move on then to item number 6 on our agenda this evening. We have the pleasure of hearing from our planner, Ryan Nunn. Ryan, if you'd like to talk to us about the text amendment for 11-3.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This zoning text amendment, it's kind of a cleanup one for us. It was presented to Planning Commission about a year ago. And so it's taken a minute to come before you guys, but it's pretty simple. The state legislature made some updates to the public hearing notice requirements. And so really, we're just reflecting those in our city code. Just a few changes to be made. And yeah, that's about it. I can help.
John, do we have any of those changes before us this evening on the screen or anything? Are they minimal?
Oh, that's the wrong one, right? That's the other
That was,
11.3.
that's shown, yeah. So the red code is what's been added. Or yeah, the red lettering. So the 10 days, and then if you scroll down in section D was added. And these really are just the provisions you need to provide with those public notices, maps and
This is to comply with state
correct.
mandate, right? What questions do you have for Mr. Nunn, council? Councilmember Pulver.
Just pinged in my head. Is there like a ginormous amount of time and effort for Ryan, or is it any cost increase that we have to like spend $1,000 billion every time we send out a notice, or?
No, Weber County has a pretty quick process where you can get all the letters really quick and get the image and everything you need when you send those out.
I figured, but it just popped in my head. I thought I'd better ask, make sure.
Mhm.
Okay. Anyone else have a question for Ryan? Let me just point out, you'll see that this is labeled ordinance 2024-18, which is right after the number 17, which is the next ordinance we'll be passing, but this will help Ryan and the group keep things in order. This was added to the agenda after. So that's why it's 2024-18. So if there's no more questions for Ryan, do we have a motion to approve ordinance 2024-18, which is the zoning text amendment for 11-3 in our code? And it's regarding the hearing and publication notice provisions as outlined by the state. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Councilmember Pulver. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Dalpaz. Is there any further discussion or questions? All right, we'll take a roll call vote, starting with you, Councilmember Dalpaz,
Aye.
Councilmember Severing,
Yes.
Councilmember Watson,
Yes.
Councilmember Pulver,
Yes.
Councilmember Barker.
Yes.
That motion passes unanimously. We will now move on to item number 7 on our agenda. We'll be having our Economic Development Director and Community and Economic Director, Scott Hess, is going to talk to us about ordinance 2024-17. This is amending the parking setback and landscape buffer requirements. And this is, I think, restating zoning text amendment 2022-01.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is one of the items that we had changed back in 2022. It was something that was considered for parks, for really all uses that aren't directly on Washington Boulevard or 2700 North, regarding how close parking can be to the right-of-way line along these major roadways. And on all of our other major roadways, you've got 1900, 2300, 21. We were wondering if we were being a little bit too restrictive. And as development had come in and people had asked about site plans, that was one thing that we had considered. And then the public safety building that we're in right now, this project was one where we ran right up against that ordinance. And the way the parking has been laid out on this building is in line with that 2022-01 change. So what happened then is we had gone through the rounds, we had done some research on what we thought the reasonable setbacks were for parking on non-major roads, on other collectors and smaller roads, approved that. And then Title 11 changed over, and that was several hundred pages of our code that changed all at once. And this was inadvertently missed in that changeover. So between the consultant, and then all of the zoning text amendments that had happened before we adopted the new Title 11, this one was unfortunately left out. So it had been long enough that it was no longer an administrative change. We took this to the Planning Commission this spring. They unanimously opted to reinstate the code, thinking that we had done that good work and that research before, and opted to recommend that forward to the City Council. And so we're bringing it to you today. To give you the specific details, right now, the design of all parking areas, with the exception of ingress and egress, shall be no closer than 20 feet from the front property line. And this adds the notes that that's along Washington Boulevard or other streets noted as collectors or arterials in the North Ogden General Plan. The location of all parking lots and other areas is either 14 feet behind the top back of curb or 16 and a half feet from the edge of asphalt. So by doing the math out on that, you end up approximately 5 feet behind the sidewalk is where the parking would begin. So you still have a little overhang area if the front end of the car, if you've got somebody back in with a truck, the overhangs shouldn't affect the parking lot or the sidewalk rather, but it does allow a little narrower area. So for instance, a certain business over on 1900 that has talked about parking considerable amount, this would give them some flexibility and room to amend their site plan and push some of that parking north closer to 1900 and just give that flexibility back. So while also being consistent with the way the city has used it on our own facilities. So with that, I'll take any questions and happy to answer them.
Okay, I think you have in the packet before you the changes. Do you have any further comments for Scott before I seek a motion? Councilmember Dalpaz?
So we have the 20-foot setback on Washington that's talked about here. And I've had the hardest time wrapping my head around how some buildings are able to come closer to Washington. A good example is across the street from Big O.
Yeah.
The site plan has the building, pretty close to the corner. Can you just explain that for my benefit and any others? Because it seems like somewhat of an inconsistency that we have this 20-foot swath down Washington,
Right.
but then we have the ability for some places to encroach, not parking, but the building itself.
Yeah, and I think it's sort of a half step towards a form-based code. So the buildings themselves can be closer than 20 feet. In fact, in some cases, the planning commission can require that building to be 0 lot line setback or closer than 20 feet, while parking is still being held back 20 feet. And I don't know if this just goes back to suburban zoning standards that thinks that cars aren't good to look at, so we should push them back or have a green space between them. But right now, the commercial code does allow up to 0 lot line on some projects if they provide walkability or betterments in design or any other number of things in the code. So through the site plan process, that would be Dan Nixon's Lock It Up commercial building as it's currently proposed is 6 or 8 feet, something like that off of the back of the sidewalk, which is closer than 20 feet to the right of way line. And then his parking would be pulled back to the 20 feet. So I can't say it other than when that code was put in place with the commercial design standards, that I think it was sort of leaning towards form-based code, which would be a little more urban development with buildings that front the street and parking pulled behind or parking pulled back.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions for Mr. Hess? At this point in time.
Thank you.
Okay. So with that, we're talking about ordinance 2024-17. And this is amending the parking setback and landscape buffer requirements. I think as Scott said, this building was in compliance with this code, so the city has used this, and I think we're all believers what's good for the city is good for the citizens, right? Since they are the city. So if there's no further questions, then I would look for a motion to restate the zoning text amendment 2022-01 by passing ordinance 2024-17. Do I have a motion?
Mayor, I'll make a motion. I motion that we reinstate zoning text amendment 2022-01 by approving ordinance 2024-17, amending the parking setback and landscape buffer requirements.
Thank you. Do we have a second to Councilmember Watson?
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Pulver. Any further questions? Okay, Councilmember Dalpaz,
Yes.
Councilmember Severing,
Yes.
Councilmember Watson,
Yes.
Councilmember Pulver,
Yes.
Councilmember Barker.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. We're now going to hear from our city engineer, Mr. Eric Casperson. He's going to give us a brief oversight on some thoughts on Fruitland Drive and the 2100 North intersection, our famous intersection of the city.
Yeah, thanks, council. Oh, there it goes. Okay. So I think everyone's aware of the intersection at 2100 and Fruitland. For one, I tend to avoid this intersection unless I'm coming north to south or south to north. And so I took a few of these pictures. John, if you'd scroll back to that first picture there. So that picture there is taken about 220 feet away from the intersection. If you look very closely, there's a side-by-side that's making a left-hand turn right there. The stop sign is just barely kind of on his back bumper inside the pine tree. You can't even see the stop sign from where this picture was taken from. And then the second picture below is standing approximately where a driver would be and about the height of where the driver would be. I think you're all familiar with this intersection, but this kind of helps, I guess, show the point of this intersection. I've gone across this and it almost, you feel like you're taking your life in your hands if you're trying to cross this. I was going up to look at the tank and so there's been some close calls. Talking to the police chief and looking at the last 5 years of this intersection, it's one of the safest intersections, ironically. So, and I think it's because of this tendency of people not feel comfortable at this intersection to be able to cross, especially from 2100 North. And the lack of sight. So it's about 75 feet is the sight distance from this point of view there, if you're looking to the south. The requirement that AASHTO for this speed of road of 35 miles an hour, the required sight distance is 390 feet, which is about, if you go to, there's another drawing, sorry, I think I'm skipping ahead there. It's about where I've drawn, yeah, about midway on that field. And so that's approximately it. And so that would be the required sight distance for this speed of road. The radius is, the current radius is 150-foot radius as it's currently constructed. And the required radius on a 35-mile-an-hour road is 371 feet. And so that's how I've drawn these different versions. There's a couple versions, this being one of them, and then the one above that are two ideas or options. And there may be others on this. So these two options here, this one explores the option of moving the road and straightening the road a little bit, fulfilling that 371-foot radius on both that lower south curve as well as the north curve, and moving the road east instead of the other option of moving it west. The drawback to the west option would be the taking of that house and the property there. There is quite a bit of elevation difference here, so there would be quite a bit of fill for this option here versus the upper option to move it to the east. One component of this intersection is the booster station that I've labeled. The words didn't really come out very well in the trees there. But the booster station, which is located at that square, is a pretty important booster station, which we are able to move water back and forth between tanks, our new tank to the east and some water tanks to the north. And I've been down in that booster station a couple times, and it's a little nerve-wracking. It's a little scary. Make sure you're wearing your rubber boots when you go down in there. It also poses a hazard to traffic as they try to go around that slip lane going from southbound to westbound. And so with these two options, the booster station would be moved out of the roadway and possibly rebuilt in its current condition, in its current location, or into another location nearby. And so, and both these options would fulfill that. And then another option that was presented quite a while ago was the option of a roundabout. This roundabout is an offset to the east, the northeast into that field. And then the other option is kind of a split between the field and the taking of that home there. So I think, I don't know, Dave, do you have any other comments to make? Okay, particularly about the booster station or?
Yeah, the only thing I would say about the booster station is currently it has to be offline right now. And so we are not able to utilize the booster station in its current form. Like Eric said, it's in pretty bad shape in the ground there because of corrosion. And so we're just looking for some guidance from council on a direction that you guys want to start looking so that we can start figuring out where we are going to put that booster station, and so that we can utilize moving the water around on the east side of the town. Just like Eric said, we're taking it from that big tank that we have now, and we're able to move water all the way up to Rice Creek. And so with this booster, but right now we're not able to do that. So everything we do moving water is done on the west side of town. So it would be good to have that and have an idea of kind of what we're doing going forward. So
Dave, refresh my memory. Do we have in the budget to move that booster station in our 5-year plan?
yes, sir.
I thought it was in there.
Yes, sir.
So Eric said we weren't approved by WFRC, I think. And their next option for money there is 2031. Did have a chance to talk with Eric. Historically, the property owner where we would need to take some ground has not been willing to sell. We understand there may be some movement in that, but if not, it would probably involve eminent domain at some point in time. So the council would have to make that decision. I think you said the first two options were, one was about 700,000 to realign, and the other was about 900. Then the roundabout on top of that, did you say how many million?
So I asked WFRC for 2 million for a roundabout.
A roundabout and add about, make it 2 million, so.
Yeah, and that included the purchase of the home.
Yeah.
There.
Which is always difficult, taking someone's home, but what questions do you have of Eric? I think he just kind of wanted to introduce the concept, what the options are. I don't think he's looking for a decision this evening. Did you have any questions for the council, Eric?
Well, I guess my question would be, is any feedback or any the ideas that you're thinking of, options that you're leaning that way? If you were to ask me, I would suggest the first option, to move the road to the east. One, the cost is a little bit lower. Then the grades work a little easier to make that work. So
You're the experts. We appreciate your recommendation. Let's go with Councilmember Watson.
So maybe I should know this already, but when you purchase some of this land to move the road, whether it's west or east, do you have to purchase the whole property, or can you just get a parcel? The one to the east, it was a field. Can you just grab that corner and just pay them for that? Or do they lose the entire property?
no, we could purchase pieces.
Okay, okay.
If it was the one on the west and we got too close to the house, we would
Right.
likely have to buy the whole property.
Right, okay.
So
And the
it's a-
people on the east have been unwilling to sell, just as a reminder. That's why we'd have to use eminent domain. Was the east, wasn't it, that they were unwilling to sell?
Both.
Either one.
Yeah.
So to accomplish that, we'd obviously want to work with them very closely in every way we could,
Mhm.
but it ultimately could result in
You made
eminent
it sound
domain.
like maybe someone was willing to change. Is that true or no?
Somebody once said, never say never, so there may be some movement there. We're not sure.
To which one?
East, I believe isn't that what we're talking about, the field? Yeah, the east.
Correct.
You done, Councilmember Watson? Did you
Yes,
have
thank
another
you.
question? I think we had Councilmember Severing had his hand
Yeah.
up
Oh,
next.
I was
Then
just
we'll
gonna,
go to you.
yeah, thank you, Mayor. I was just thinking, so just clarify so I remember. So if we moved that road to the east, then we probably wouldn't have to purchase the entire property. If we moved it to the west, we would have to include the house. And yet, if we put a pretty serious impact on them, even if we were to move that to the east, they could claim inverse condemnation because they feel impacted on it, and we would end up having to buy the property anyway.
I'd have to defer to the attorney on that.
So that there would be an appraisal in the condemnation process that would look at what's the potential loss of value? So if by moving the road over, we eliminated the potential of 6 or 7 lots, then that would be taken into the value of the condemnation proceeding.
I know it is. It's really hard to talk about, eminent domain. And yet on the flip side, I'm thinking, how could they not be more impacted than, even if we moved it to the east, they're going to be seriously impacted. We may save a little bit of money, maybe, but that's still going to be a pretty serious impact on that family.
Yeah, I think we'd probably look at both and see what the results were, not only economically, but some folks living in the house, right?
But it's time to do something in that one. I think the only reason we haven't had too many accidents is because when you approach that stop sign off at 2100, you're just moving. I can only speak for myself, but I move with a little bit of fear and trepidation, just a little bit at a time, and then I gun it to head northbound,
Yeah, yeah. And the hard part is to look south, you have to go into the
Right.
southbound lane.
Mhm.
So I did have a question looking at those. Do we have some code violations of that bush being too high on the corner, blocking the view?
It's been there for years.
It's definitely within a site triangle. Now, the site triangle on this intersection would be quite large, much
Well,
larger than what.
is
our
that a yes
current
or
one
no?
is. It is, yes.
Then we ought to, because it's a safety issue, right? That bush right there is,
It's within
who
the.
wants to
site triangle
contact
area.
code enforcement about that? John, thank you. On there.
I have another question.
Okay, can we
Is
go
there
to
someone else waiting?
Councilmember
Yeah,
Pulver
okay.
though, since he's had his, Councilmember Pulver?
Yeah, I guess the big thing too is the fact that not having the improvements in curb and gutter along that, both right here on the north and south side, just cause havoc. And I know so many people have either like dented a rim and all these other things. I mean, because you can't keep up with some of the potholes that are right there, and it's just constantly getting eaten. And to me, I think it's something that needs to happen fairly quickly. I know people are like, oh, just keep Fruitland the way it is. And I'm like, well, that means that you're going to be having a road that's narrower and narrower over time. And to me, it's a safety issue, period. And so this needs to be done. And I agree with minimal cost and keep the sight lines and be within code.
Councilmember Watson, let's go to you, Councilmember Dalpez, and we'll come back to Councilmember Watson.
Okay. Yeah, I've had McDaniel family contact me on that house on 2100 North. It's the one that's immediately west of the home that we were looking at on the map. And they've had problems with water coming into their property. And so they've got sandbags all along there. And so I'd say no matter what we do, we got to figure out a way, if we re-engineer this and put this into place, it seems like you'd almost have to have a curb put in that entire section connecting to that south portion of 2100 North, where the new home is. I don't know. I don't see any other way that they would solve the problem. I know that usually we wait for a home to be built or something to be built for them to improve the curb. But is there some way on that one that we could invest and put the curb in because they're having all kinds of problems and it's not anything to do, it's none of their fault. It's just, it's never been improved.
Right. Yeah.
The south side of 2100 North, there's the newer home to the west. There's the old home that's right on the corner. That whole section has no curb. And so what I'm saying is it seems like if we go to the engineering to get this all done, I don't think it would improve anything if we do the changes and then that curb isn't added all along that south end. It's probably a couple 100 feet or 150 feet, something like that. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, right now, we have a project that we're, right now, it's just more of a temporary project right now that we're grabbing that water that's flowing along those sandbags. And we're gonna put it into our storm drain. So we installed a storm drain last year for the tank. And so we're installing that, taking that water into that storm drain. I think it's this week or next week. So that project's coming in. But I agree with you. There are other ways you could do. You could do a curb and gutter, like you're saying, or you could do a borrow pit or some other. You could do a asphalt little berm. So there's different ways to do it and still keep kind of a rural feel of the road that I've heard that a lot of people would like to maintain. But yeah, there's other options that we can definitely look at to help control the water.
Yeah, I guess I don't really care how it's accomplished, is, just so they don't have that continuing problem in the future. So I'm with Councilman Pulver that we need to look at this. I say sooner than later, just because it's going to persist. And we also have had complaints on the north side of 2100 North, where you have the canal that keeps filling up with sediment. And I don't know don't know the immediate solution to that. Seems like piping it, but there's problems there too. So I'm hoping that once this stuff happens, it's part of making it better and doesn't make it worse for any of the neighbors there.
So if I understand this right, the pipe you're talking about putting in will relieve the flow of water there. But I have a
Okay,
question,
I didn't
Councilmember
understand that.
Dalpas. I think you said sooner than later. How would you propose, we're at a minimum 700,000, that's probably without the value of the land assessed, because we don't know what that is really. It's
Yeah,
a
we don't
best
really know what
guess.
that is. You're right. Correct. Yeah, a range of about 7 to.
Where would we pay for this?
Well, I say sooner than later from a 5 to 10 year project plan, So I think you mentioned that it's on the booster station is in the 5 to 10 year plan.
Correct.
Okay, so that's not the road, but we probably need to get it added to the plan. I don't know.
Yeah, the next chance we have to get money from WFRC is 31.
31.
So that's 7 years. But I'm just asking if we want to do it sooner, we're going to have to figure out how to.
Yeah, the sooner than later is,
pay for it.
it's gone, all these years without ever being improved. And it just has to be done eventually. So
I just wanted to
saying.
get your definition of sooner or later, because how we're going to pay for this.
Go turn dirt tomorrow. No,
Okay.
that would be
Dave, can you
complicated.
get on that? All right,
So-
let's see. Councilmember, John?
I'm just gonna say, so right now on the 5-year capital project plan, it's listed as a project next year for 1.5 million.
The intersection.
Yeah, Fruitland intersection upgrade.
With the booster?
The booster's a separate project, but it's,
But you'd want to do the booster at the same time
You'd think so.
when you got the road tore up. Okay, Councilmember Watson?
Do you have a location in mind for the booster station to be moved?
I mean, there's a lot of options.
It would probably be more to the east, just because it would make sense with the tank. But we just have to look at different options, like Eric said. I think there'd be options to be able to, depending on how much we move the road, we might be able to build it in place where it's at.
Right, there'll be a lot of space there unused. Mhm.
Correct. So.
And then the other question I have is anytime a city or anyone makes a change in a road, you're obligated to fulfill the latest code, right? And so would there have to be curb and gutter, or what I'm really trying to get at is sidewalks? It's a very dangerous spot for drivers, but it's even more dangerous for the pedestrians that are there. I'm one of those idiots that do that. I run that road, but it's just, I'm curious if there was any way that maybe not an official sidewalk, but like you're saying, some kind of rural. I was just on the Pleasant View path today that's, asphalt or something. Is there a way that that could be fit in somehow, or were you planning on something like this?
Yeah, that's something that the planning commission brought up. It's been a few weeks ago. But yeah, to look into something similar to something like that. So yeah, that's something
Would
on the
have to
radar.
do a sidewalk? Is that what you're saying, or is that?
Yeah,
optional?
yeah, they would have to meet some sort of pedestrian safety issues.
Okay.
If we mess with that, or at least some sort of plan,
Okay.
but it's.
There's some weird nuances in that sidewalks are required when you subdivide.
Oh,
And typically it's the neighboring property owner that does it. So when the city improves roadways, it's not necessarily a requirement. However, we do try and do it, especially ADA. If we touch any sort of a pedestrian access that's ADA related, we bring it up to code. But we technically sidewalks are a subdivision improvement, so we wouldn't have to put it in, but we have been looking at putting it in. Because it's unlikely that we'll see a lot of subdivision in this area on Fruitland.
I'd be a proponent of the sidewalks.
I think, John, in our previous discussion, you said this may be a great project for the transportation utility fee. Pay for it. Councilmember Pulver.
I was just looking at the water projects that they had, and that they had the booster system at $1 million in FY26. So that's part of this, I'm assuming. So to me, it looks like there's 2.5 that's already budgeted to do what we're doing.
Councilmember Barker, you haven't had a chance.
I was just listening to everyone's opinions because I'm the anomaly here, since I drive this road every day and I actually go to this intersection every day. And working this job I do, it is a weird intersection, but it's not that unsafe because we never go there for accidents. I'm also about as far against eminent domain as you can get because I don't think it should ever be used. I won't say ever, like it'll go with never, right? But I will not vote in favor of eminent domain on this type of a project, but I do like the straightening them out whichever way is possible, but it's only when the landowners want to sell. That's my opinion.
Someone else wanted to make a comment. Did I see someone else's hand? Okay. Thank you, Eric. Want to talk to us now about the right turn lane on 400 East and 2600 North.
Yes. Another good spot. So I think you are all aware of this intersection. I've been stuck in traffic there before. And when I've chosen to go that way and not chosen another way. So we've heard a lot about adding a right turn lane on the McDonald's corner. We've approached UDOT about it, and they are in support of it. One thing that they've talked to us about is narrowing the lanes, the southbound lanes by 1 foot, so from 12 feet to 11 feet wide. And then, so that would gain us 2 feet, and then I would need to move the curb another 2 feet beyond that to the west. What that would result in is a wider sidewalk. It would be about in the same location, but it'd be 6 feet wide versus 4 feet wide from the corner all the way up to about just short of the fire hydrant, which is just south of the Lee's entrance there. There have been a lot of talks about wanting this with the phase 1 of the widening project. So there are about 150 cars a day based on UDOT's count that make the right turn here. So yeah, and that's based on their count. Yeah. So anyway, So they opted in phase one of the widening project not to install it just because of the low level of cars and for the cost that it would have incurred on the project. And so now it's come up to our attention again to take a second look at this. And so, like I said, UDOT's been supportive of this project, and I haven't presented this plan to them, but they're waiting for it as soon as we make a decision on whether or not we want to proceed with it. I've estimated it at about 125,000 to make this happen. So there's one large power pole which Rocky Mountain Power would have to remove and relocate, which is right on the corner there. Yeah. So I've notified them. I haven't received any feedback on that or any yelling or screaming yet. So on that. So anyway, so I guess that's my purpose is coming to kind of see what your guys' take on this project would be. If you want to feel like we want to proceed with this, kind of what your thoughts are.
If I could just add a bit of color, Eric, to that. I think too, most of the development is going to take place in the north, right? So we're going to have more cars coming down there. But here's my concern, and I'm not sure it's legitimate or not. It's just my feeling. Is I think there's some safety issues here. What happens here is when the traffic gets backed up, people cut through Lee's parking lot, and they're usually the ones that are in a hurry, right? So they're not going real slow in that parking lot as they cut through the parking lot. Additionally, what I'm seeing is when people get backed up there and can't get in the left turn lane, they're swinging over into that painted island, which if it were cement, they couldn't do, but it's painted right now. And there's a crosswalk right there. When they swing out around there, and I know usually when most kids are going there, there's a crossing guard, but not always. So my issue is, we have received a lot of feedback from citizens about not being able to make that right turn there and the traffic backing up. My concern is even greater for the potential safety issues there as people cut through the parking lot or they swing over to try to get into the turning lane and they're swinging right across that crosswalk right there. So I just wanted to, from my standpoint, add the safety issue there because, in some cases, yeah, people can wait a minute or two, right? But they're not that patient right now. I know I've received a lot of feedback. I don't know about the rest of the council, but so the question is we don't want Eric to submit a plan to UDOT. We have met with them and talked with them, and before they would even talk to us about it, but now they've softened and they're, as Eric has explained the plan to them, they're surely willing to consider that. But we don't want to have a false alarm if the council's not interested in pursuing that. Councilmember Pulver?
I would also use Mr. D as much as we possibly can, since he's been appointed to that, is it at-large person for UDOT? So.
UDOT, it's not going to participate in the cost. It's our.
Oh, I know. But it just, the one thing that Eric mentioned is that he mentioned 2 feet from the straight, but not from the 2 turn lanes, which the 2 turn lanes are never used. I mean, sure, I use them every once in a while, but they're empty a lot of times. So why can't you steal a foot from each one of those? And then you've got your 2 feet that you've just, and if you're going up Washington and right at 3100, we've already blacked out a line and pushed it over to the right a little bit to have that right turn lane going east onto 30. So all I'm saying is that, it's not that hard to jink back. I don't know.
Yeah,
I know that UDOT likes their little,
they like those.
but I would push back on that. I don't know how much more you can just say beat on them that this is stupid. I mean, look at the study. There's no way it's 150. It's 150 per hour. I mean, it's insane to say that's per day. Anyway.
They're being pretty cooperative.
They are.
I'm not sure they care how we move the lanes as such.
Correct, yeah.
They're being pretty cooperative at this point in time, but it is $120,000 deal. Councilmember Severin?
I'm just curious, and I'm in favor of this, if that's kind of what you're looking for. I was under the impression that it was going to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to be able to move power lines. So is that something we're going to be looking at $125,000 expense, but are we also going to have to move power lines?
No,
Or is-
so under the franchise agreement, Rocky Mountain Power must move their pole at their expense.
Oh, okay.
So since it's a city project,
Since it's a city.
Okay. And just to clarify, the turn lane would start just past the entrance to the plaza there, off of 400. So it wouldn't be extensively long,
right?
but it would allow cars to get over there and turn. However, it's often backed up clear past that.
It is, yeah, yeah, and it would alleviate a lot of cars if they were able to make that right turn,
Instead
pull
of
them
staying
out
in
of
the
the
lane.
stream. Yeah, so alleviate that backup from up the hill.
And I swear there's a sign that says through traffic, stay
Yeah,
left.
Nobody reads it.
I know. In fact, I've had to point that out to my wife. She's like, when did that go there? You know, anyway.
There's
Yeah,
a
we
sign.
tried to alleviate it because then people could come down and make that right-hand turn, but nobody's really paid attention to it. Councilmember Walker, did you have a comment?
I'm in favor of it.
Councilmember Watson?
I am also in favor. Does it impact, do you have to steal property from the Walmart or the McDonald's there?
No,
Okay.
no.
That's why it wasn't done in the first place, because it would have been, I think John said, in excess of $1 million just to get that piece of property, because it would have affected McDonald's. So there won't be a park strip.
There will not be.
The
Right.
sidewalk will be right up against the curb.
It will be.
So that's how we get a little room. Councilmember Dalpass?
Question for John, is this eligible for RDA?
It is in the RDA area. And so we just would, if we were going to use money for this, we'd want to align it with one of those things outlined in the RDA project area plan. But I think traffic safety could easily qualify.
Okay, I'm in support. Either way, I think it needs to be done.
Any other questions for Eric or the other comments?
If it doesn't get funded from the RDA, then what?
Probably come out of capital projects or
Yeah, well, a good
Numerous
example
places.
is if that Fruitland project is only $1 million instead of 1.5, then in theory, not that there's money that's being created, but money is unexpended and can be moved to other projects.
Okay. Anything else, Eric?
No, that's
So
everything.
what I'm hearing then is, why don't you go ahead and get the plan drawn up and get approval from, and give, Councilmember Pulvers, maybe squeezing those other lanes, although they are pretty firm about. trying to get
Yeah,
those things lined
they
up.
are, especially for the crossing of the intersection. I mean, they want it to go straight. And if we narrow those, it's about a 3-foot shift across the intersection. So that's the hard part, is then you have tendency to have front end collisions, an increase of that tendency. So
Kinda like
they're
25,
very,
50.
yeah.
I was going to say kind of like Hoagie's Corner if you've ever driven through that intersection.
Yes.
All right. Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.
All right, let's go on to item number 10. Mr. Call, you're going to speak with us about detention basin relocation, irrigation storage, community park.
Okay, council. So this is the basin we're relocating. The O'Reilly's is over here on 300 East. This shape that's in the backward 7, that's the water channel that pretty much flows water all the time. That's usually a base flow from just the springs on the hillside and groundwater that's captured in land drains and other things. But what most people don't recognize is this is one of the last basins for this particular storm channel before it leaves the city and heads west. So it's a very critical basin for us. because the water right now hits 2550 and heads west and goes out to our neighbors. Far west is the one who probably sees the biggest impact from this storm line. But it's kind of a convergence of multiple storm systems. The dog park that's up here on 950 East drains down to here. And then also the storm basins that are up here in Lakeview Park. And the system that kind of comes down this way. There's one right here in on the north side of Loman View. There's one on the south side of the Public Works. Those all drain into this basin too. And so what we've been looking at and what Eric has done most of the look at on this is there somewhere we can put that roughly 19 acre feet of water while this property is sold and developed for commercial use, while we wait for the federal grant to come in and we can move that basin to this property that we own down here, and get our acre feet back. And the short answer is yes, maybe, kind of, but in some places, no. A good example is, and Eric could give you better information, but there up here at Lakeview Park, there are 3 detention basins that cascade. So there's one down here at the bottom right by the trail. There's one up here off of 3550. If you've ever been out there, there's a little utility, and there's one here. And then there's actually one up here in between these houses. Right, Eric? Those are the right locations. They kind of go, it's kind of like the 3 bears. You got a little tiny one, a kind of a medium one, and then a big one.
That one's on the north side of that street.
Oh, it's right up here. Yeah. But what ends up happening is, to increase the capacity in these basins to help temporarily alleviate the main basin down at the bottom, would cause a significant amount of excavation, which could lead to hillside instability in that area. And these basins would probably say, we don't want to expand. But some of the other basins, and let's go down to this one here by the Public Works facility, in theory, that could be expanded. We could add another, I think the goal was an acre foot there, but we don't have 18 basins that are easy like this one to do. And so that's the conversation is, if we're going to get this property, finalize the contract with the commercial development so they can get their process going, we've got to find a space for water. And to do that, we have 2 options. I should have started this way. Sorry. Expand our basins on all these little legs and this kind of spider web of storm basins we have that are east and north of this basin, or look for other places to send the water. Eric has talked with the county about Horseshoe Pond, which is out here. Jimmy John's is located right here. And so Horseshoe's north of that. The county doesn't have capacity in there. So we wouldn't be able to utilize that. And so we've even talked about other property out here potentially as a temporary holding spot. But I think the easiest things for the city to deal with is to do one of 2 things. One is wait until the federal grant money comes through and we put the basin in here full capacity, just like it's designed, or to do some sort of a temporary basin on here, because the project on this end includes under the federal program, includes some irrigation detention or irrigation storage that would make it much deeper and a much bigger project. So one thought is we could move 18 acre feet of water down here, essentially on the surface of the ground. We might do a little excavation, but kind of prep it for the future. But then some of that earthwork would be thrown away when we do the full project under the federal grant. So we would be spending money to get this ground in commercially viable, and then basically looking at the offset of property values, sales tax, and property tax to offset the burden or the cost onto the temporary basin. I don't know. This is kind of a big, complicated topic. The idea, and I think you can ask Dave and Eric and myself our opinions. I would probably like us to have the temporary basin as an option and something we could pull the trigger on in 6 months if we needed to, and then wait for the commercial developer to give us those signed letters of intent and those signed commitments from the people who would develop, or eventually the businesses that would come to this property, before we turn any dirt. But I'd want to have a plan and everything ready to go so that we could do it within 6 months notice, because I think that would give everyone enough time, especially depending on the time of year, for us to effectively move the water, make the other property viable. Because the upstream detention basins, we could maybe get 4 acre feet on the safe basins, but we don't have a way to get 18 or 19. So I don't, Eric knows more about the storm system. I should have just made him do this one too. Would have been, you probably would have understood an engineer instead of a lawyer talking engineering. So, but I don't know, Eric, what are your thoughts and things?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. I mean, we looked at different options of maybe moving the detention basin underground, but it wasn't feasible. I mean, it's just super crazy expensive. And so, and looking at other detention ponds up the hill, they're just not sized correctly. And then the risk that we would incur or possibly incur of increasing the size of those ponds could be possibly detrimental. I mean, depending on where their detention basin is located. So especially lake views. I mean, like John said, they make me nervous right now. So yeah. So anyway.
You can't just put the water back out in the road and let Pleasant View or Harrisville take care of it.
Right.
One of the things I think that would be helpful to know too is we were feeling for a while that maybe Pineview had lost interest in their part of the project. But now that the golf course development seems to be moving, there's some thought that Pineview may have to use that as outlined in the original project to get secondary water into that development. They're indicating they have some solution. We don't know what that is, but
Right.
if we can get Pineview back on line here, and then I would remind you that originally this was planned as a park area, and we have a $740,000 ramp grant that's probably would go away. I think initially when we talked about doing our share of the park and stuff down there, we were talking about putting out $1.2 million over what we've already spent there. Is that about right, John?
Yeah.
And to do this basin by ourselves, do it right, long-term would be, did you say 3.5 million, John, estimate?
3.5 just for the basin.
Just for
So,
the basin, no park.
yeah, so close to 5 to do both.
Yes, Councilmember Pulver.
So you tried to figure out why the federal government is kind of giving us the shaft, or what have we kind of used and abused the people that we have representative to? Because you see these crazy studies about Russian cats that don't like to type, and you're like, we can't get money to do something real. And I guess that's my concern, is that we're not pressing the right. Are we standing on air hoses, I guess is the question.
Well, we have contacted Representative Moore's office. We have talked to, this comes out of a certain fund that's budgeted by the government. They're telling us all that money is currently spent. That they're hoping it'll get renewed, but they don't know based upon the new administration what will happen. They know that we're also willing to contact Senator Lee's office. So we have, tried to work through the proper channels, but they're just telling us there's no money. It's very frustrating because this has been at least seven or 8 years. John, did we decide?
Yeah.
And it's really kind of frustrating. And then with Pineview kind of feeling like they were falling off the project, that they were an important part of the project to get money from the federal government. So I think there's still some work to do, but the important thing I think that John mentioned here is I think we need to have a potential plan in place. We do have an offer on that property, but it's pretty substantial. But I'd hate to overreact until we have the developer show us in black and white that he's got some tenants to go in there. So we don't incur any expense, but sounds like about the only thing that's possible is to do a temporary basin there that would, if the full project came to fruition, we would be tearing up we'd be duplicating and tearing up and incurring some additional costs. Councilmember Severing.
Oh, sorry, Mayor.
Oh, no.
You can finish.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So I was just curious, remind me, it was 6.6 acres that, right?
The current basin is 6.6 acres.
And then what is our, can we reveal this, but what are we hoping to sell it for?
So it's a signed contract, it's public, and it's the appraisal came back at 2.95 million. Something like that.
So it would cost us $5 million to put the basin in. And we would make $2.5 million on the
2.95.
2.95, so 3 million.
That's with no park.
Yeah, I think we ought to wait.
Well, in the, doing just the basin would be 3.5. Doing the park portion would be another 1.5. So that's where I got to the 5 million. And that would be including, that 1.5, the park would actually be closer to 6 because the ramp money would be coming in. So that's the kind of stuff that it's a big expense if we're doing it on our own. If you were to look at it over 25, 30 years and there wasn't a federal grant coming in, it would make sense because we want commercial development coming in and we need a bigger basin. But to do it early and potentially risk spending 5 million, you don't have to, seems,
And that would seem like that was at least from my opinion, that seems like the logical decision, but council needs to weigh on that as well.
And there was some breaking news in our meeting earlier. If we increase that, which from about 18 acre feet we've got now to approximately 22, which was the plan, we may get some involvement from the county, some funding from the county. So a lot of work to do here. Supposedly would become clear after the first of the year if we have a chance to get this money, because now they're saying, oh, and then there's bigger projects. It's harder to get money for smaller projects because there's so many big, there's just so much uncertainty here, but I think it would become clearer. And John, I think, is as frustrated as I am with the engineers on this. I think, this dropped off their radar somewhere along the line.
Eric's quickly becoming the only engineer I like, or only civil engineer, I should say, right?
Yeah. So what feedback do you have, Councilmember Dalpaz?
So if we got LOIs from the developer saying, business is going to come in, it's coming in the future, it's still not a guarantee, right? We just have paperwork saying that there's an intention for a company to come.
You have to go beyond that. A letter of intent wouldn't be adequate.
Okay. So that's good. So what you're saying is we would have a more firm piece of paper from the developer that says this place is coming in. So we know we're not risking. Okay. That's all I needed to make sure, because
That was
when you
the-
first mentioned it, I think I was thinking in the terms of just a letter of
Yeah,
intent
no.
and okay.
Yeah, those can come and go, as you know. Councilmember Pulver.
Just looking at the budget for stormwater for this year, they have Mud Creek Detention Basin. Is that something that be deferred or borrowed to do some of the stuff we need to do for this, or Dave yelling at me probably? Because to me, that's something, if we have something budgeted already that we can at least steal some from to at least get started. I don't know, that would
My problem is I hate to spend that money
I-
knowing that it's gonna be wasted without even knowing what we've got in that development.
But how long do we wait?
Well, I think we're gonna get a clearer picture here, and I think we wait until he produces
Something.
signed purchase agreements or whatever it takes that we know we have to move.
So-
We have to act.
So all we, are we doing or would be doing is just hard piping from one top to the bottom for the base? It's already piped?
Already done.
Okay.
We'd have to excavate it down to,
Correct. So that would be the biggest part of it, is just excavating it all down, building
Got a
it out
shovel and a
to the
wheelbarrow.
capacity that we
Start
need.
working.
we need 22 acre feet there.
Just get a whole bunch of people.
So my recommendation, council, it's up to you, but that we get a clear picture here, but we know that there's an option, and sounds like the only option is if we get some meaningful tenants in there that's going to generate property tax and sales tax that would, that would cause us to start digging. I just hate to spend that kind of money knowing that it could go for waste. I think also it gives us a chance to talk with the county more to see what they might be willing to do. It gives us a chance to see if Pine View may be back on now that that development is taking place. But, you know, to John's point, I think the only thing is if we get some high volume sales tax generating, property tax generation there, we probably need to be willing to move, but we'd have to do the analysis to say, you know, what's the present value of the sales tax and property tax? And what will it generate in the surrounding area before we go plunk $5 million down? Councilmember Severing?
Mayor, I would also just remind the council that, you know, you can get a letter of intent and follow it up with a real estate purchase contract, but technically that real estate purchase contract is going to be subject to due diligence. And a lot of those commercial developers will say, we're not even gonna, we won't give any money until we've looked at it, studied it for over a year. So I mean, even though we may have a real estate purchase contract, it still comes down to the approval of the due diligence
Right.
requests. So.
And talking with the developer, he's gonna start on the eastern part of the property and go west. So he was planning on that year or so down the road anyway. But it could be longer than that, based upon what we're seeing his movement today.
So I guess my point just simply is if we start, I don't think we commit any money to it until we actually see
What
that
we've
they're
done.
past their due diligence and.
Oh. Councilmember Dalpas.
I hear what Councilman Severing is saying. But the way I look at it, either way, that piece of land is prime commercial real estate. So whether it develops in 2 years or 5 years or 10 years, it will, and it will produce really good property tax and or sales taxes. So, you know, I think there will be an element of risk no matter what we do with this. It's very complicated by the sounds of it. But if we had a signed purchase contract provided to us, even considering the due diligence risk, I think it's something that would be worth pursuing because in the end, it will develop commercially. It's just a matter of when.
And I totally agree with Councilman Delpas. My thought just is, until we get past the due diligence, if we spend the money, we're gonna be in trouble.
There's some risk.
That's just simply my thought.
Okay. Anything else? John, do you need anything else?
No, I think that we'll look at and see what it would take for our plans to be amended for a temporary basin. Knowing that we're not going to commit any money until we come back and talk to the council. I mean, it's not in the budget, so we're not going to do it without council approval anyway, so.
John, in the agreement, we have some obligation for a park. It's not just defined what kind of park, right?
Correct. It says a park and there's some specifics like on the north end, it can't be just a chain link fence. I think it has to be vinyl dipped
Right.
and things like that.
Okay. Thank you, council. Let's go on to item number 11 now. Let's hear from Councilmember Dalpas to see if he has anything to report on the police department.
Yes, I have a couple of things to report regarding the police department. Let me just pull up a couple things here. First is, we have some exciting news that we're going to have a new police officer onboarded soon. Tyler Jackson has accepted an offer to start here in a couple of weeks. He has a lot of experience both here at North Ogden City, Pleasant View, and Weaver County, and the Sheriff's Department, I guess you could say. So he's very familiar with this area, has canine experience and armory experience. So we're excited to see that, and glad that we could get him here. The other thing I wanted to mention is that I received an update from Chief Einan that, and Councilman Pulver will be interested in this. We did receive some information about what a flock audit would look like. Let me just pull this up so I can explain what he said to me. Actually, there's nothing to hide in that email. Just bring up that email that Chief Einan sent to me. Go to his wording too, like, okay. So I'll just read it out loud so everyone can hear it. So Chief Einan said, "We conduct quarterly audits of the flock system access to ensure that the information being accessed is connected to an investigation and per policy. I have listed the policy below for your review, and in the event that you receive further inquiries from other council members, you guys, the administrative access is tiered and governed by our investigations lieutenant and ultimately reviewed by me on a quarterly basis. If necessary, arrangements can be made for the quarterly audits to be reviewed by you or other members of the council or a third party for full transparency." And then he provided me with, and I'll forward this to everyone so they have it available to them, the policy outline. So just scroll down so everyone can see that there is an official policy in place about operations, limitations of use, what are the retention and audit reports supposed to look like, data collection and retention. Somebody can't just access the system without a good reason to access the system. And so it's all talked about there. So I will send this to you. I hope that this is something that will satisfy some of the questions that have been asked before. I know that we had some residents that were concerned about the data retention and how long it's retained and all that good stuff. But let's start with that. And then if anyone has any questions, just reach back to me.
Councilmember Delpez, we had this discussion, John and myself, with the chief. I think the ultimate question was not, are our policies being followed? Is what Flock's telling us taking place. And so our discussion was this. We asked the chief to look in. Flock is a pretty good sized organization. It should be getting an independent audit. And generally, there is a statement in there that says the internal controls are adequate and policies are being followed. So we asked him to pursue to see if they have an independent audit that would state that they're in compliance with policies, et cetera. So he was going to pursue that. So maybe you could follow up with him and see if he's done that, because I think the key is the concern was, Flock says they're eliminating the data in 30 days. Are they really? But they should have, a third-party audit generally will look at procedures to make sure they're being followed. So if you could follow up with him and see if he's had a chance to talk with him about that.
Sure, will do. He spoke with them as recently as September 4th last week. But I will get some more information on that, understanding that it's more about an outside independent audit to make sure that everything's being.
I think it was last Wednesday we talked with him about.
It's a
pursuing that.
flock itself, to be honest.
Yeah, a flock, yep.
Yeah, so maybe you could
It's-
follow up with that. Anything else, Councilmember Delpez?
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you for that report. We're going to go now to Councilmember Severing. See if he has anything to report on building and planning departments.
I do. I have 4 things that I received from Scott. And Village of Prominent Point Trail is done, and the 2 apartment buildings will receive their certificates of occupancy soon. Scott reported that the upcoming developments in the city, including Paul Farr's Townhome Project, Hall Tree Phase 17 and 18, are moving forward. And then Cooperstown, apparently, which is south of of the Coldwater Animal Hospital is, I guess there's still some work being done with Ogden City before that actually formally gets done. And then building permits with Ryan and other people's assistance are moving quickly. And they appreciate the support of the council.
Thank you. Councilmember Barker, what do you have to report to us in regards to parks?
So I was late getting with Jamie and I didn't get a response, but so can I come back at a future date?
You bet.
Because our parks are.
We'll look
looking
forward to
great.
you reporting to us maybe on the 23rd of September as part of a report there. Okay. Any other public comments this evening online or here? John, is there anyone online that would like to comment?
No raised hands right now.
Okay, then we'll move on to item number 13. Staff, Dave, Scott, Ryan, Eric, John?
I think we had an interpretive dance planned tonight to celebrate someone's birthday.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think Kevin was doing the interpretive dance for us, though.
Actually, it's Ryan's birthday today. So happy birthday, Ryan. We won't make an attempt to sing and ruin your day, but just we're glad you're with us. We're glad you're on our team and thank you for all you do. Okay, Councilmember Pulver.
Just one, I was say minor thing, but it's something that's been chewing on me for a while. And after last planning commission, it kind of has worried me a little bit. As they develop to the west of Washington between 1700 and 1500, that the high density that they're pushing, and I guess, and we're talking about Cooperstown as well, that still has yet to be developed, and that's going to be quite a bit, is that we have all of these high density south locations without any gas station or other, grocery store or something that's in that area. And I guess that just concerns me a little bit because then, we're trying to make a walkable city and, we're just not doing it. And I guess gas station, not necessarily walkable, but, just certain types of things like that just kind of worry me that we're putting a lot of density without necessarily any, we can't plan for commercial, but I know there's commercial there, but at the same time, how do you kind of weigh those decisions? But anyway.
Yeah, we'd love for somebody to bring to us some commercial development. We are hearing some rattling of maybe a gas station on the corner again. As you recall, the council amended an ordinance to allow certain type of drive-through there, hoping that we could get some things there, but maybe with the development that's taking place down there now, maybe that'll create some more interest, but there's ground there to do it.
Yeah, and the one thing I was kind of disillusioned about was when they were talking about the storage unit that they basically had capped their south end parking lot in their design. And they said, the planning commission, we don't want anybody coming through us to go to anybody below us. And I thought, well, that's kind of odd. But so something like that, I think we need to think about more as a city, is that, especially on that west side, if there's not going to be any more lights, that those businesses need to be connected and not separated. But anyway, just thoughts.
Yeah, I think it's right now, John, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're all separate so they could be sold, right? They separated those out so they don't have to be continuous.
Yeah, it's hard to assemble parcels when you have that many, especially family. That's a lot of those parcels are owned by family and they're all related. So sometimes I don't know this, so I shouldn't say it, but it's sometimes hard to negotiate deals with that.
So we've got all that commercial along Washington Boulevard between 1700 and 1900, right? That could be used down there. So I believe there is some development going on at Cooperstown that's stubbing that road there because their UDOT permit was getting ready to expire. But John, we do need to contact our friends at Ogden City.
I'll reach out to their attorney again and
I'll reach out to some of their council members that we, anything else, council, you'd like to discuss this evening that has been brought up? I have nothing. John?
An exciting update is coming to an email near you.
Wow.
The code is this close to being ready. So that's 1 through 10, excluding 3. And when we give it to council, we will also post it on the website so people can see it and review it. But we'd like you to have it for a couple of weeks because it's only 300 or 400 pages. So hopefully you can get through it pretty quick. But I apologize. I should have mentioned that during my comments, Mayor, but I do
John,
want
have
you
you
to know.
checked to see, is there an October Connection magazine coming out?
There is a September magazine and an October. I did talk with the owner of Connection Magazine, and he is planning to continue to publish the magazine. Although he didn't give me a lot of details. It wasn't a long conversation. And I get the impression it might be a smaller version, more like the Hometown Values, but that's a little bit of speculation because I really didn't get much information.
So
from
the
Brian.
September one that's due a week ago, is that out?
I haven't seen it yet.
So when will we need to get the stuff for the October?
Katie has already gotten it to him last week. So,
So I don't have to write a message. Great.
oh, I assumed that she got it to him last week because we
Oh.
talked about it on Thursday. So
Oh. And
But-
it's open if somebody would like to volunteer to write a message. I
We-
mean, it's,
we do need a message because we need one for our newsletter, and October is the first month we're sending out our newsletter. So we do need a message.
so we'll have a message in the Connection magazine for October and one in the,
And it can be the same message.
I'll work with the council, see who'd like to write a message. Okay, well, with that, then I'd be looking for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you very much. Motion is